Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to our Thursday evening Louise self-healing class at First Center, First Church of Religious Science here in New York City. I'm glad you're all with us. Those of you on Zoom, those of you watching later today on Facebook, YouTube, Insta or X, Spotify too. Really glad that you're with us today. Ours is a space of transformation, healing, and inspiration, and we welcome everyone exactly as they are. As always, we want to acknowledge our growing global audience, our participants, our family. Your presence, your energy, and your engagement make this community what it is, makes it so vibrant and so alive. And if you're new here, a special welcome to you. We have a time of personal sharing later, and I hope you're able to say hello, or you can also comment in our chat room. We invite you to be part of our ongoing spiritual conversation. And to that end, we meet 3 times a week. We meet here now on Thursdays at 7. If you're joining us later, please connect with us, and we'll send you an invite so you can be part of this. But however you connect with us, it's wonderful. Sunday mornings, we meet at 10:45 for our main lesson. 10:45, we start off with a meditation, last 10 or 15 minutes. Then roughly around 11 or a few minutes afterwards, we start our lesson. And then on Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m., same Zoom links, by the way, for everything we do. We have our Creative Living series, where we go deeper into spiritual principles and their practical applications for everyday life. So it's important for me to mention that there's never a charge for any of our broadcasts, any of our gatherings. We are a community that's supplied and supported by the love offerings that we receive. And we're grateful for those of you who are able or inspired to give. Your generosity helps us continue our work and reach more and more people to bring our healing message and hope and empowerment. So most importantly, your presence is a gift. That's the most important thing, and we're thankful for you being here. So tonight's message, I was putting together some ideas of Louise Hay and Ernest Holmes, and I came up with the talk title for this evening, He Said, She Said. So we're exploring a little, what we're doing is a little bit different. It's the idea of bringing together these two great spiritual teachers. Ernest Holmes, of course, was the founder of our teaching, and Louise Hay. So again, I'm calling the lesson, He Said and She Said. Otherwise, what Ernest said and Louise communicated. Typically, when you hear the phrase he said, she said, it's in the context of some kind of an argument or a debate, a contradiction, or sometimes a dispute. But tonight, we're taking that familiar idea and we're giving it a new meaning. Instead of disagreement, we're revealing the alignment, the similarity between these two very different voices. They spoke decades apart from one another, and they actually expressed the same profound idea, both in their own unique ways. Everybody today, or a lot of people in my circle of ministers and practitioners, there's a lot of discussion, concern about the disappearance of religious science, the closure of a vast majority of the churches and centers. But I maintain religious science and the knowledge that's been communicated through religious science is always moving forward, and there's nothing to fear. It moves forward by means of all of us. Yes, Ernest Holmes and Louise Hay were profoundly important teachers, but the truth that they revealed is timeless. Many people today, especially people under 40, may not have any idea who Ernest Holmes is. Ernest Holmes laid the foundation for much of the New Thought movement, including the science of mind principles that shaped Louise Hay's teachings. And while most of you know Louise, some of you may have discovered us through reading more modern people like Gabriel Bernstein or Joe Dispenza or Michael Singer. Modern voices carrying these very similar, if not same ideas forward. And that's the way of life. Before there was Holmes, there were Phineas Parkhurst Quimby, and of course Emerson and all the people who contributed to Holmes. So you can see knowledge, this knowledge and this power has always been here. These truths have always been available to us. So today we're exploring again Ernest Holmes and Louise Hay. And when you listen, you'll realize they, like the modern ones, are all saying pretty much the same thing, just in different ways. When I'm comparing Louise and Ernest Holmes, Holmes always declared. He was, I declare, and I know, and I realize. And Louise affirmed. She was always affirming. Very similar, same idea. And even today, these truths continue to unfold through anyone who's listening deeply, who's communing with their inner knowing. What many people don't know is that First Church is the place where Louise Hay came to study Ernest Holmes' teachings. She sat at First Church listening to Raymond Charles Barker, our founding minister. She sat and she listened and she studied, and eventually Louise became a practitioner of religious science. And she went on for her ministerial studies as well. So this is the church, this is the center where she learned to practice these teachings and where we continue to practice them even today. There are millions and millions of people who benefited and adored Louise Hay. They benefited from her work, her voice, her message, her meditations, all that she did. She profoundly impacted the New Thought movement in ways no one could ever imagine. Yet many people don't realize the depth of her spiritual background, the amount of study that she did. She wasn't just a super or a best-selling author who just wrote a great book. She was much more than that. Louise was a dedicated practitioner with a very deep understanding of metaphysics. She just found a way to communicate it better than anyone up until that time. She was inspired and she learned directly from the work of Ernest Holmes, and she built upon it, and she made his teachings accessible to the masses in a way that hadn't been done before, that touched people in many, many languages across the entire globe. So this evening, we're going to connect the dots a little bit for you. I wanted you to know how the two of them I wanted you to know where Louise got her information, what the basis of it was. So let's take some of Louise's most famous affirmations and pair them with statements from Ernest Holmes to show you just how deeply their work, or her work, was rooted in what he taught originally. So before we get into my list of affirmations of Louise and Holmes, let's take a moment to reflect on how extraordinary both Ernest Holmes and Louise Hay truly were. They both, in their own way again, were unlocking the secrets of life through what they wrote, through what they taught, by being the people that they were. They weren't just ordinary teachers. They were spiritually gifted. They were architects constructing new pathways of understanding. Both of them were ahead of their time, constructing pathways that led people toward personal empowerment and inner realization, divine realization, that the very thing, Louise would say, deep in the center of your being is this thing. And Ernest Holmes would be saying something very similar. They made a huge difference. Ernest Holmes had a brilliant mind. They say he read every book in whatever library it was. He just consumed information of all kinds, but he was particularly interested in philosophy and world religions and consciousness and self-realization. So he had this great mind, always seeking to understand the very fabric of reality. He was always distilling the most complicated ideas and the ancient wisdom and contemporary thought and turning it into a philosophy that was both scientific and deeply grounded in spirituality. He wasn't offering just hopeful ideas. Ernest was providing a framework for understanding how life itself works, how life unfolds according to divine principles. Then, many years later, Louise Hay took these profound ideas, these truths, and translated them into a language that spoke directly to the heart of a new generation. She showed us how we could apply and how we could practice these ideas in our everyday life. Now, Ernest was talking about practicing also, and in his system, he wasn't really looking to build churches, but he wanted people to become practitioners. So Louise showed us how we could apply and practice these ideas in our everyday life. She was taking what Ernest was talking about into the world, into a new generation, not just as an intellectual idea or knowledge, but as a healing practice. And she was hoping that by employing this practice, we could shift our consciousness and transform our experiences so we could, in fact, heal our life. In a world today, the 2020s now, that so often divides and separates people, in a world, or maybe it isn't the world, in a world where we often feel disconnected, separated from our own power. Both Ernest Holmes and Louise Hay were bridges. They were people who taught us how to bridge the gap between knowledge and personal transformation. They were guiding people. They were great guiding, and they were guiding us to move beyond fear and limitation. They're guiding us to reconnect and know that the universe is not working against us, but everything actually is unfolding for our greater good. The universe is unfolding, in fact, through all of us. That's a concept we go over and over again in our classes. I'm going to take a little process here. Let's take a deep breath. Louise would often start her process with this statement: deep at the center of my being is an infinite well. There's an infinite well of love, intelligence, and beauty deep at the center of my being. So let's go to that place right now for a moment. Deep in the center of our being. You could close your eyes if you'd like. Taking a deep breath. Just hold it for a couple seconds. Slowly exhale. Knowing all is well. And take another one in. Notice your heart center. You could put your hand there if you want, as she often said. But let your mind go to your heart center. Notice the rhythm that's in your heart. Notice the steadiness. And realize that this heartbeat is the rhythm of life. Feel it pulsing. The rhythm of life flowing through you. As you breathe in again, imagine breathing in light, pure, radiant, healing energy, healing light. Just breathe it in and let it fill your entire being. And as you exhale, release anything, any negative state, anything that's troubling you. If there's any tension, doubt, whatever it might be, lovingly release it. Let it go with ease. And silently affirm to yourself, I'm open to new ideas. I welcome wisdom from all sources. I am ready. I'm ready to receive and integrate divine truth. Take another deep breath, feeling lighter and lighter and more connected with the wisdom that's already inside you. You notice it's beautiful, and you realize that you are in the right place at the right time. And so it is, and so it is. So now let's step into our main teaching. Louise Hay's wisdom, woven together with the deep spiritual principles of Ernest Holmes. When we look at their insights side by side, we see how powerfully they reinforce one another. It's like a conversation, one perspective adding to the next. He said it one way, she said it another. But again, at the heart of both is the same truth: the power of thought and spiritual law. It all comes down to the law of mind in action. You've probably heard the phrase, seeing is believing. But what if actually it worked the other way around? What if what we believe is what we end up seeing? Think about that. What if what you believe, that's what shows up in your life? What if our beliefs, conscious or unconscious, are the invisible architects of our lives? I've been teaching this for many years in many different ways. Like the sum total of my thoughts, and unconscious and conscious, are produced in my life. We have great control over our conscious thinking. We're always programming ourselves. And hopefully what we're doing with our unconscious is we're these battered places and these places where there are untruths, we bring them to light. When we're doing spiritual mind treatment, we're making affirmative statements. And oftentimes when I say you strike gold, is when you come up with, when you strike an unbelief, and that's where you can do the work with it. But the totality of these beliefs, these thoughts, are reflected in our lives. So the question again is, what if our beliefs, conscious or unconscious, are the invisible architects of our lives? What if what we believe is what we end up seeing? And see, that's what I'll say is that exactly what happens. It's my conscious thinking, it's the stuff that's working underneath that's producing my life. And if it's in my life, whatever it is, all of it, it's in my consciousness. And that's not about being good or bad or right or wrong. It's beyond all that. We bring ourselves back to the point where we put ourselves in a new moment and we can realize, okay, I can turn this all around. Now, Ernest Holmes would say in the next segment, life is a mirror and it's going to reflect back to the thinker what he or she is thinking into it. So this is one of those statements that seems so simple, yet it explains almost everything about why people experience life so differently. Two people can live in the same city, same apartment building. They can have all the same opportunities. I mean, they're living in the same world, yet one will thrive and they'll just have great positive expectancy, and the other person will struggle. And what's the difference? Of course, it's the way they look at life. It's their perception of reality. It gets back to our two wolf story that I've probably too often explained. And the answer, you have the dark wolf and the light wolf, and the answer is, which one are you feeding? Are you feeding the positive narrative, or are you feeding the negative narrative? Ernest Holmes was saying the same thing. He said, life doesn't happen in a vacuum. Life is reflecting your consciousness. So think about it. If you believe the world is against you, and poor me and ain't it awful, then you're definitely going to find evidence to confirm that reality. If you believe life is full of opportunities, there's opportunities everywhere, then you're going to start to see doors opening for you where other people will see walls, or they'll see barriers, or everything that obstructs. So that's Ernest. Now let's hear from Louise. Louise said, I am willing to change. I'm willing to release old barriers. I'm willing to release negativity, negative beliefs, and I'm willing to change. She wasn't trying to have it her way. She would say, I am willing to change. Louise knew that beliefs are not fixed. Louise absolutely knew that beliefs are choices, and they're very fluid. Now, sometimes people are very stuck in with rigid beliefs, but she absolutely was teaching that beliefs are not fixed. They are choices. And here's the thing I teach in many of the classes. We are always at choice. Every moment is the opportunity for a new beginning. And so if life is mirroring our thoughts, we can change what is being reflected simply by shifting what we believe. In a new moment, you can say, stop. You've seen me teach those classes. I'll invoke Diane Ross, stop in the name of love. Or you catch yourself doing what we used to call stinking thinking. You'd be in a negative place. You say, stop. I release the need for you. I acknowledge you. I'm willing to learn whatever you're here to teach me, but I release this and I replace it with something positive. Because if life is mirroring our thoughts, and we can change what's being reflected by simply shifting what we believe, or beginning to shift what we believe. And see, this is where people oftentimes get stuck. Because if we want to be 100% real about it, change isn't comfortable for everybody. We all want new experiences, but we also want to hold on to, all these other things like security blankets. We say we want abundance, but we still tell ourselves that money is hard to come by, and you talk about scarcity and everything else. We might say we want love, but we tell ourselves that we can't have it. We say we want that, but we tell ourselves relationships won't work out. I'm not good in relationships. So what if the biggest thing standing in the way of our dreams and acquiring the things we want was just an outdated belief you've been hanging on to? Something that just have not let go of, you've refused to let go of. And maybe that's the very barrier to the thing that you really have wanted throughout your life. So here's something to reflect. It's always a question. You hear this one often. What's the one thing you're holding on to for months, weeks, possibly years, that might not actually be working for you, or what it might not actually be true anymore? And what would happen if today you were willing to change it? What would happen today if you're willing to loosen the grip and let go of it? We've spoken of this in different classes recently, the importance of letting go and trusting the process of life. The importance of making space also for something new or someone new or new things. It could be anything from a sofa to an article of clothing. It could be, a better relationship. So the importance of letting go. So let's consider, because once we realize that our beliefs shape our reality, let's take the next step and let go of the ones that sabotage us. Let's consider letting go of beliefs that don't in any way serve us anymore. You know what they are. Everybody probably has something that they know they'd benefit from if they could just release it and let it go. Ernest Holmes and Dr. Bill T were always saying the same thing to me. They live in my head, both of them. We must be willing to let go of the lesser in order to experience the greater. They both of those men said that in almost identical ways. We must be willing to let go of the lesser in order to experience the greater. So I would suggest let go, wherever you can. And that one hits deep if you let it, because here's the truth of it. We don't always struggle because life is withholding anything from us. We struggle because we refuse to release what's no longer meant for us. Again, we don't struggle because life is withholding. We struggle because we refuse to release what's no longer meant for us. We hold on for some reason to old hurts because we think somehow they protect us or benefit us. We hold on to limiting beliefs of all kinds, well, often because they feel familiar. We hold on to these past versions of ourselves because there's something about stepping forward that seems uncertain or scary. But Ernest Holmes is telling us something very important here. He says you can't step into a new reality if your hands are still clinging to the old reality. You can't step forward if your hands are still, tied to the old. And this is exactly what Louise Hay would say, and she would say it another way. She would say, I let go with ease. I let go with ease, and I trust that life will bring me what I need. So Holmes is saying you can't step forward if your hands are holding on to the old. And Louise is saying, I let go with ease, and I trust that life will always bring me what I need. And that's where her brilliance came through. Because she knew letting go isn't just about releasing, it's about trusting that something better is always coming forward. So here's a question. Similar question. What if you could let go with the same ease as you exhale your breath? Notice your breath coming in and it going out, how easy it goes out. What if you could let go with the same ease as you exhale? What if you trusted life? What if you trusted life was always arranging something better for you? Here's something to try again. You can close your eyes for a moment and think of one thing, just one thing that you think it's time to release. Think about it. Something small or not small. One thing you think you could release. Breathe it in, acknowledge it, exhale, and imagine letting it go completely. Because here's the beautiful truth I often share. The more you let go, the more you let go, the more room you make for better things, great things. Let go. It's entirely up to you. So I've given you 7 or 8 powerful principles for this gathering. Let me briefly go over them. The first is thoughts create reality. Life is a mirror. The second is our beliefs shape experience. So we want to have the willingness to change, right? Next is the importance of letting go. The importance of letting go so we can make space for the new. And the universe is always sending us these cues and messages for us to trade in the lesser for the greater. So the importance of letting go. And then open ourselves up. Approach the ocean of life with positive expectancy so we can make space for the new. And the next, the whole foundation of transformation is coming from connection, gratitude, connecting with Source, knowing that you are one with the One, loving yourself, expressing gratitude. Gratitude itself is a causative factor. It brings forth more good whenever you can center yourself in that knowing of being supplied and supported. And the next is seeing beyond what is. Religious scientists are really pretty good about this because we're rooted in the transcendental movement. We're not caught up in what's going on right here, right now. We know that there's a greater reality. We know that there's a greater truth. We have been taught to be the lifters and the leaners. We're taught to see the good in all things. So what we've gone over tonight is seeing beyond the apparent reality, having spiritual vision and faith. And the next is healing. In healing, we want to always remember that we're one with the One, and there is a connection between our physical bodies and our consciousness. If we change our consciousness, see ourselves as whole and complete, we can heal our lives. And the next principle, surrendering to the divine flow and trusting the process of life. Each of these I've covered with the quotes by Ernest and by Louise. Each of these ideas, principles, build on the last, and all of them create a blueprint for transformation. And let's tie it all together for a moment. This evening, again, we explored the idea of aligning the teachings of Ernest Holmes and Louise Hay. Again, they live different lives. They express their truths in different ways. But ultimately, as far as I'm concerned, they were speaking the same universal wisdom. Ernest laid the foundation of knowing that life mirrors our thoughts and that we're powerful creators or co-creators. But he was suggesting for us to do it well, we must align ourselves with divine law. And then Louise came along a generation or so later and gave us the practical tools, affirmations, self-love, and many daily practices to embody these same principles. So now we bring it all back to the title of this lesson, He Said and She Said. Yeah, they had their own way of saying it, but what they were saying was, it's all about you. You hold the power. Life is not happening to you. It's always responding to you. As my mother used to say to me, it's always up to you. It's always, always up to you. You are a powerful person. It's always up to you. It's always responding to you. And when you change your thinking or you shift your thinking, you shift everything. You can heal your life. So I've got one more short story. You might have heard about, and this is a good story, it's brief. You might have heard about the river versus the rock. The story helps us illustrate trusting the process of life. So with the story, imagine a river that's flowing effortlessly down a mountainside. So there's a beautiful mountain, and there's this river, and it's flowing effortlessly down the mountainside. The water is fluid, it's adaptable, and the water is unstoppable. It moves around obstacles, it carves new pathways, and it never ever stops moving forward. You got the picture, right? A river that's effortlessly flowing down the mountainside. Fluid, adaptable, unstoppable. Now, picture a large rock sitting in the middle of that river. The rock resists the flow. It tries to hold its ground while the river rushes around it. And over time, the water shapes the rock, wearing it down bit by bit. I want you to know life is the river. It's always moving, always flowing, it's always evolving. And when we trust the river or we trust life, we become like the water, fluid, resilient, and open to change. We allow opportunities to come, and we navigate the challenges with grace. When we resist life, we become like the rock, stuck, rigid, and worn down by struggle. There it is. Ernest Holmes said, life is a flowing, giving stream of intelligence, and we must move with its currents if we expect to receive its gifts. Again, that's a beautiful quote. Ernest said, life is a flowing, giving stream of intelligence, and we must move with its currents if we expect to receive its gifts. And Louise said, I flow with life easily and effortlessly. So what's the lesson? Stop being the rock, become the river. Let go of fear, let go of control, let go of resistance, and trust that life is guiding you in the perfect direction. So here's a question. Where in your life are you resisting? What would happen if you just let go and flowed with life instead? What, if anything, shifted? Is there any insight or experience you'd like to share with the group? Never any pressure. There's a couple minutes for everyone to share who wants to. It's an open welcoming space for you to share. If you feel like speaking, let your hand out, or Jimmy will eventually get around. You don't have to share if you don't want to. And when you're ready, we'd love to hear from you. Thank you.